Welcome back, Nerglings. Today we are going to be looking at the Giant Chaos Battering Ram. But before we start, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring the Tallyman's bell so you don't miss an update.
My boy, there's not much in this world I haven't come across. Fortunately, I haven't seen such a mighty war machine with my own eyes. As a general rule, I try to stay far from the edges of the Empire. Can't be too careful these days, eh? Mind, the Great Chaos Battering Ram is one of the most fearsome machineries of chaos. A titanic fusion of war machine and demon. It is hauled to the battlefield by dozens of deformed wretches, driven on by mutated, hulking slavers. Truly a terrifying sight to behold, its demonic face twisting in fury as it goads its charges ever faster to the gates of the besieged city or town. When upon its foe it barks and roars orders to its malformed crew, spitting bile and gnashing its huge fangs in anticipation for the coming feast. There are few city gates that could withstand such an onslaught, for the battering ram itself is infused with dark magic, unlike that which the world is familiar with today. It is this that is its saving grace, for not even the Chaos Dwarfs could replicate such enchantments, and for that reason there are fewer and fewer of these incredible machines left in the world today.
The Giant Chaos Battering Ram was released as part of a range of larger, multi-part and boxed pieces called Tony Ackland's Arcane Monstrosities. It was introduced in August 1984, although TA4, the Orc War Machine, had been released in December 1983 as part of the Citadel Presents range. Only TA6, the Emperor Dragon, survived to make it into the 1988 catalogue. In all, there were 9 models in the release, mostly chaotic monsters, demons and war machines. Not all the pieces were sculpted by Tony Ackland. The TA7 Chaos Battering Ram was by Chaz Elliott, with the first of these huge behemoths leaping forth in 1985. This thing is an absolute epic. It's all metal and very heavy, so it's going to take some serious engineering to get it together. When I received it, some of the pieces were bent and slightly deformed, so I've been busy bending them back into shape and ensuring they fit snugly when glued together. There was a lot of glue in some of the joints, so I've had to clean that up. For the most part, I just picked it out with a scalpel, but for the more difficult to shift stuff, I simply went over the top of it with muddling putty. A fully lead beast, it weighs in at about 2 pounds, whilst the instructions urge that a degree of modelling expertise will be necessary during assembly, and that a certain amount of work will be needed to ensure a satisfactory fit of parts. For this reason, we do not recommend that this model be attempted by inexperienced or very young modelers. The assembly instructions provided are intended as a guide only. Be prepared to improvise. Ominous words indeed, although not to be unexpected. After all, it is 19 parts, not including the slavers and slaver. In a time when many, if not most, 28mm models were single cast, these were truly epic, expert modelling kits. Being so heavy, the kits were designed in a way to include plugs and holes to fit them together and assist in the arduous process of gluing them together. The Giant Chaos Battering Ram is no different. It has holes and pins designed to make life somewhat easier. However, there is the added problem of gaps between the joins. To remedy this, I used my favourite modelling putty, Milliput, a 2-part putty that sets rock hard with very little shrinkage and no cracking. It is, however, difficult to get natural-looking, organic shapes out of it, as it is prone to splitting when under pressure. Combining it with some chewing gum or your favourite more rubbery putty can lay this concern to rest. Some of the more characterful pieces include the roofing panels that you can see here. They are a mix of plain wooden panelling and blasted remains of the aforementioned. Presumably this particular war machine has already seen several titanic battles and lived to tell the tale through its scars and battle damage. Finally, we have the battering ram itself, a huge construct with the face of a mighty serpent. I plan on changing the colour of this particular chap and making him a bronzed colour with some neat special effects paints to bring out some oxidation and decay in the metal. As you can see here, the giant demon on the battering ram is now more or less complete. I wanted to paint him before I glued him to the chassis to ensure I could get all the way around him with the brush. One of my favourite colours to paint is actually red, so this was fun to do. I like working up from a rusty brown colour and making the red more rich as I go. Again, to keep it simple, I wanted to paint both ends of the ram before attaching the roof pieces, as they are kind of fiddly otherwise. Here is the ram. As discussed earlier, I've painted it in a brass colour and will be varnishing and then highlighting with special effects paints. Moving on to the slaver, I have pretty much completed him and he awaits a small contingent of mutated freaks to lash. I have also started on the wheels, as, once again, they are particularly difficult to paint when already glued in place. Moving further ahead, we now have the main structure complete. Both ends are glued into place and the struts that hold the roofing tiles are now cemented in too. I've even gone ahead and started to varnish the thing to help with the overall handling of it. Hopefully now that it's taken some varnish, it won't be so fiddly and I can move it about without fear of half the paint dropping off if it sees the edge of a pot of paint or what have you. As you can see, the red colour really pops with the shine of the varnish. However, I will turn this down when I get around to spraying it with some matte varnish. This will give it a satin look and further protect this fantastic piece. I've started picking out some of the detail in the pieces with metal and rust effects to give it that used look and feel. This is, after all, a war machine from antiquity and should have seen hundreds of battles throughout its illustrious lifetime, and it will go on to many more. The Chaos Dwarf strongholds could always use more slaves after all, so there is always going to be a need to smash someone's door down and take them. The battering ram is nearing completion now. The roof has been attached with a bit of a gap in the middle, which I plan on filling with a matchstick or two. The wheels are almost ready to glue into place, having painted and prepared them. The ram itself has been oxidised, and we are just about ready to build this big bastard. This is the final form of the Giant Chaos Battering Ram. However, once I glued it to its base, I realised that I had made a huge mistake. After all, what discerning old hammerer would glue an ancient model like this to a bloody oval base? Absolute heresy, I have to admit. Don't worry though, I came to my senses and ripped it off the base, and it's now safely attached to a heavy-duty MDF base, covered in stones and pieces of metal to ensure it doesn't fancy warping in the future. The roof is now complete, and I managed to find some suitably arcane looking hinges to attach to it, even going so far as to scuff and bend one out of shape to assist in the battle damage look. On to the pathetic slaves that are going to drag and push this mighty weapon of war. I decided early on that the ram must have its own slaves to shift it around the battlefield. What Chaos Dwarf or Chaos Warrior would allow themselves to be seen lugging a battering ram around when they should be busy killing things? Anyways, the perfect group of mutated freaks came by in the form of the Eureka Miniatures Undisciplined Army, a real mix of oddballs and strange folk, dressed in just about everything from suits of armour to old rags, and carrying a crazy variety of weapons, from large keys and pieces of wood to a frying pan and a giant feather. Those Australians really do make funny miniatures. They are the perfect victims for my evil slavers to whip into a frenzy and move this great big thing. Some of them have quite small tabs on their feet, so a bit of work will have to be done to make sure they are stable on their bases, but this shouldn't prove too hard. I usually milliput all the tabs onto my bases anyways, for uniformity and a bit of added stability. To that end, I would like to end this video there and open up the comments to you. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring the tallyman's bell so you can keep up with this huge project. Peace.